I was detected in a screening program. If the screening program didn't exist, by the time I would realize that I had breast cancer, it would have been probably be metastatic. If you have been diagnosed with cancer, you must know and realize that cancer treatments have evolved in the last 20 years dramatically in a positive way. Last October, when I had my yearly mammography and ecography, they found something in my left breast, and they did a biopsy, and I spent 4 horrible weeks, thinking that cancer was back again. You never end with your story. You are with the cancer in your head the whole time. You are going to have a bad time because treatments are very hard. It's going to affect your quality of life. You will have to stop. We all are going to die one day or another. But in metastatic disease, they know that they have an expiry date more clear than the rest of the human beings.
Hello and welcome back to Drug Diaries, the podcast where we explore the stories, breakthroughs, and ideas shaping the world of healthcare, life sciences, and biotechnology. Let me ask you a question. What is one thing that connects you and me? What is the one thing that unites everyone working in the life sciences, pharmaceutical, biotech, medical device, and healthcare sectors? It's a single-minded mission, a shared purpose. In an industry worth over $10 trillion, made up of millions of professionals, all of us are working tirelessly toward one goal: to improve patients' lives, to enhance their health outcomes, and to elevate the quality of life. Today's episode is unlike any we have ever done before. It's not about data, technology, drug discovery, or innovation. It's about humanity. For the first time in this podcast history, we have the honor of hearing from someone who represents the very heart of everything we do, a cancer survivor. Ms. Conchi Biurrun Martinez is more than just a guest. She's an advocate, a voice, and an inspiration for millions of patients navigating journeys like her. She has lived the reality we are all working to change. And today, she's here to share her story with us. This episode is about so much more than the challenges of her diagnosis and treatment. It's about the resilience she discovered, the lessons she learned, and the insights she gained into the very system we create and operate. Her perspective is a mirror for our industry, a reflection of what we do well and what we must do better. In today's conversation, we'll explore her personal journey, the gaps she experienced in healthcare, and how she believes we can truly empower patients. We'll talk about her advocacy work, her coping mechanisms, and the role her support system played in her recovery. Most importantly, we'll ask how we, as an industry, learn from her experience to create real change. So whether you are a healthcare professional, a researcher, or someone simply curious about the human side of medicine, this episode is for you. Conchi's story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and a call to action for all of us. So let's begin. Welcome to Drug Diaries, Conchi.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Conchi, can you walk us through your experience from the time the symptoms started to surface to where we are right now? It would be really helpful for me and our audience to step into your shoes and experience the journey from your perspective.
15 years ago, it was in November in 2009, I was very busy working. My background is marketing and international trade, and I travel a lot, and I had a lot of guests to visit companies in my region because my job was to help companies from my region to export to other countries. And I had a date for the breast cancer screening program. So I went, they did a mammography, and I went back home. I went back to work. And 2 weeks later, they called me back again, and the nightmare started. So they saw that I had a tumor on my left breast. Then I had an MRI, and they found the second tumor. So first thing I thought was that I was going to die, because when you hear the word cancer, it's like a death penalty. And I have had the experience with my mom some years before with a colon cancer, that she died 11 months after her diagnosis. And I was very scared. I live alone and with a dog, and I was really scared, and I was very nervous. And at the beginning, I just was angry. It was a mixed up of feelings. And suddenly I remember my mom. She was a wonderful patient. She was a very positive person, full of hope. And she always told me that you can never lose hope. You must be hopeful always because you will live better. Her target was not to bother anybody and to interfere the least possible in the lives of her family. So it was my model. I changed my mind and I thought that, if I was going to live shorter than I expected, I was 52 at the time, and I had my brother's grandchildren. They were very, very small, and I spent a lot of time with them, and I enjoyed it very much. And I wanted to see them grow up adults. But I thought that if my life was going to finish, I wanted to live as best as possible and interrupting other lives the less as possible. So they did more tests, and in January 2014, I had a mastectomy. And the first time I heard the word mastectomy, because they said, you have breast cancer, you will have chemotherapy. And mastectomy was like I was trembling.
Right.
And then they said, you are going to lose your hair, but I didn't mind my hair. I minded my breast, and it's an amputation. It's a part of your body, but it's a part very special for women because it's part of our feminine aspect. Or if you have fingers or an arm amputated, it's completely different because. And when I went to the hospital for the operation in mid-January, I said goodbye to my breast. I had a very personal conversation with it. And I had the operation, and they found the third tumor after the pathology of the whole breast. And when I heard first one tumor, then two tumors, afterwards 2 tumors, I thought that my case was terribly bad. But doctors kept saying that because the type of cancer I had was multifocal and it could be also bilateral. But having 1, 2, 3, or 4 tumors didn't increase the seriousness of my illness. It was true that the third tumor was bigger and the size of the tumor worsened my situation, but my prognosis was not bad. But I had a very long journey ahead with treatment. I started chemotherapy and I lost my hair. I was like a baby. The problem was not losing the hair. It was that the treatment caused me a lot of pain. I had a lot of pain in my bones and my muscles, and the chemo treatment worsened it very much. I was lucky enough not to have radiotherapy, but I had to take an endocrine treatment for 5 years when I finished chemotherapy. And that was a real disaster because the pain was so unbearable. I was sent to the pain unit. I still take morphine derivated painkillers plus other. And I continue with my life. I was very lucky because in Spain in 3 years, I didn't work for 18 months, but I got my salary every month. So I didn't have to bother about financial issues. My salary was paid every month. But once I was recovered from chemotherapy, I went to the doctor in November, and I said that I wanted to go back to my normal life. And I wanted to go back to work. They said, you can still be at home recovering from chemotherapy till your hair grows longer. And I said, no, I want to go back to my normal life. And that was something I learned, that normal life was not normal life anymore because my life had changed very much. During the whole treatment, I spent a lot of time at home because I had chemotherapy once every 3 weeks. And with every session, the side effects were worse. So I spent more and more time at home, and I had a lot of time to think about my life and about even I changed the furniture of my living room because I realized that I didn't like them very much. I'm very thankful to breast cancer because I was a person, my job was the most important in my life, and I was fully dedicated to my job. And suddenly you stop, you have time to think about yourself, to your life, your future. And I realized that I didn't want to go on like this, that I was thinking about the future, the whole thing, planning. I wasn't living the present. So cancer taught me you have to enjoy the present, the moment you are living, because and happiness is not big events or big things in life. Happiness means, for me at least, to enjoy every single thing of your daily life. When I wake up in the morning, I say I'm not very religious, but I thank God or whatever for being alive again and for having the opportunity to live one more day. Look, I love the trees. I walk and during my cancer treatment, I started in winter and I finished in summer. In my city, there are a lot of parks with a lot of trees. So I realized how beautiful the springtime is with the blossom, the flowers and everything. And it made me happy. It's a very simple thing that doesn't depend on you because it's not nature. But you see something nice and you feel better. So my values changed completely. My family supported me. They were incredible. I have 3 brothers. They care for me very much and they really supported me. My sisters-in-law, my nieces and nephews, and my friends, and even my colleagues at work. We had a lunch every month when I felt okay. They just told me about news, about colleagues at work and so on. So they kept me informed, not about the job, but about what was going on and so on. But also, I lost some friends. It was something I still cannot understand. With some friends that they call me or I call them, I've been diagnosed with breast cancer and this is going to happen. And I've never heard from them again. So I realized I don't understand because I'm not like this, but there are people who are not able to face or who don't know how to treat a person with a disease as grave, as serious as cancer. Breast cancer has a very good prognosis. There are many women dying of breast cancer, and I thought I was going to die at the beginning. But I have very good friends from my cancer time, but I lost some friends because of my cancer. Well, they were not really friends, but I lost them. And I was reconstructed because for me, reconstruction was a part of the treatment. It was not, since the very beginning, and that's what the doctors told me, well, we are going to do a mastectomy, but you will be reconstructed. So, and for me, it was part of the whole treatment.
Right.
So I started the whole process. It was very painful because they put me in an expansor to fill with liquid. And I went to the hospital every 2 weeks. And so as the expansor was enlarging the size, the skin was expanding also. And at the end, they took out the expansor and put a prosthesis. And the whole story with cancer treatments and reconstruction lasted 3 years. I was still with endocrine treatment. I thought about leaving it because it was so painful, but my oncologist, he was very honest because now as an advocate, I've learned that many women leave this treatments because as they are pills, many people don't consider them as a cancer treatment like chemotherapy or radiotherapy, but they are very important because my cancer, estrogen receptor. So my treatment was to try to reduce my estrogens with a lot of side effects. The worst of them was pain and osteoporosis. But when I talked to my oncologist that I couldn't fight the pain anymore, at the same time I was working, I was traveling, it was very difficult for me. But he explained the things very clear and very serious to me that I had a very high risk of recurrence and these pills would help me to avoid the recurrence and even to avoid a possible metastasis in the future. So I finished every single pill I had to take for 5 years, even though I was full of pain, I slept bad, and I didn't feel well for after 5 years. I would go back to normal again, but that doesn't happen because I don't have as much pain as in the past, but I'm much worse now than before the cancer time. And in 2013, I joined my local breast cancer association. They have a support service with psychosocial support. And I became member of the board. And I had the opportunity to attend EBCC, European Breast Cancer Conference. And I enjoyed the speech very much. And then in 2014, I had the opportunity to stop working. I got an agreement with my company because, well, my normal life was not normal anymore. My preferences had changed. I wasn't happy at work. And the agreement I got was good enough for me to stop working. And I could live 4 years without working. And I retired at 4 years after at 61. So now it's 10 years since I stopped working. As I had more free time, I did a course from Europadona, the European Coalition on Breast Cancer, a 2-day course on advocacy. And I attended this course and I really enjoyed it. And I thought that I could help people and I could help other breast cancer patients of practicing advocacy because I wasn't so good at directly with patients, but because of my experiences, my way of being, advocacy was the right thing to me. So even though when I was diagnosed, at the beginning I didn't know a word about breast cancer. I thought that breast cancer was just one type.
Right.
And everybody was the same, but then I learned that there are different types. And I tried to look for a lot of information. I have a brother who is a doctor, and he helped me to look for information. And that's one thing I really complain about, that I wasn't given the information I needed and I wanted at the right moment, at the beginning. So this is something I really try to fight for, that patients, there are some patients who don't like to know. They say, well, the healthcare professionals, they know everything. I am in their hands and I don't want to know everything. Well, fine. But I think that more and more cancer patients, not only breast cancer patients, but cancer patients in general, want to know about their disease. Which type of this? Well, it's something happening in my body, so I want to know what's happening to me.
Yes.
And if I have different choices of treatment, I want to take part of the decision because I live with these circumstances, because I prefer to do this thing instead of this other thing. Sometimes there is no possibility of choice because there is only one option, but sometimes there are different options, and that should be discussed with patients, and patients should have enough information to discuss it with their doctor because, well, I do this, I do that, I prefer injections to pills or the other way around, or I prefer to go more often to the hospital, or whatever. Because I was lucky enough because I lived 20 minutes walk from the hospital where I received the treatment. But many people who don't live near hospitals, they have to drive or they have to go in public transport. And even people living on islands. In Spain, we have many people living on islands.
Yes.
In the UK, in Italy, in Greece, in Sweden. And people have to move from one island to another for treatments. And while chemotherapy is one day, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, that's not so bad. But radiotherapy is every day. So people have to move and live in another place, and they have to find a place where to live. In some places, patient organizations offer apartments for this type of patients to live because not all the people have enough money to pay an apartment or a hotel. So there are many issues surrounding cancer treatment. And I think that an informed patient is an empowered patient. And it's our turn, and patients must be empowered. And they must know all details about their situation, their prognosis. If they said, no, I don't want to know, okay, that's fine. But at least they have already chosen not to know. A patient is not a file, is not a number, it's a well-being, and we have feelings, dreams, situations, families, partners, children, pets. Maybe we have a project for a new business and the cancer breaks completely your dreams.
Right.
And with a good arrangement with the treatment, maybe you can go on, or you can postpone it. Or there is one thing also that at least in Spain, we have been very lucky to have this law approved, which is the right to be forgotten.
Right.
That has been approved in several countries in the European Union. And that means that cancer treatments in Spain after 5 years, in other countries is after 10 years, they don't have to say that they have had cancer.
Right.
When they ask for a mortgage, when they ask for a bank for money for open a business or whatever, or for an insurance.
Yes.
And that's very important because many people, I had breast cancer when I was 52. I worked it for it was like administration, but I wasn't a civil servant. But many people are self-employed.
Yeah.
They are freelance. And there are situations, if they don't work, they don't get money. And many people, because of adverse events, in breast cancer, for instance, I had the ganglions taken away. And I am very lucky because I've had very little lymphedema, which means that your arm swollen. Even though my arm is not swollen now, I cannot wear tight clothes or tight rings, or I cannot have injections on my left arm. I cannot go to a sauna. I cannot be sitting near the heating, for instance, because the hot ganglions help the lymphatic circulation. And if you don't have ganglions, the lymph has the return way more difficult. So that's why the arm is swollen. And many people cannot work in their job anymore because of this.
Yes.
So sometimes they get, if they work, at least in Spain, if they work for a private company, they get a small amount from the government because they cannot do their job anymore, but they don't get any help to reinvent themselves because they have to find a new job, a different one, and think about hairdressers, physiotherapists, massages, people working in stores or in shops carrying heavy box or heavy cases. Right. This is because of adverse events. And that's also one complaint I have about the system, that they don't, people think about chemotherapy and the only thought is hair loss and stomach problems, vomits and nausea, but there are many other adverse events. You discover them little by little, and you have to ask, how can I do to avoid this? That should be told since the very beginning.
Yes.
You can have this and this and this situation. If this happens, try to do this, or there is no choice, so okay.
I can't begin to imagine the kind of pain and suffering that you've endured throughout this journey. And what amazes me the most is the positive attitude you were able to maintain and the attitude of gratitude you had throughout this journey. And the fact that you were able to draw lessons from this entire journey and reflected upon your life, and also took it to the next level of helping other patients who are going through a similar journey and sharing the experiences that you've gone through. I think that is absolutely inspiring. What were some of the most emotionally and physically challenging moments during your diagnosis and treatment? And what gave you the strength to persevere through them?
Well, the work was here in the word cancer, of course, and then mastectomy. I was lying on the table next to the echograph machine, and the radio professional that was doing me he had read the MRI and was doubtful So he did an echography and found the second tumor. And he told me, well, if this one is positive to cancer, I will recommend, because in my hospital there is a multidisciplinary team that discusses every case. He told me, if this is a second tumor, I will recommend mastectomy. So it was like I was trembling, but then, well, I mean, you never know how much you can bear till you face the situation. I mean, we think that we are weaker than we are, but we are stronger than we think, because once you are faced to a situation, at the end of the day, you want to live.
Yes.
And do whatever you have to do to live longer and to try to live as better as possible.
You touched upon a very important aspect, and that is when you're hit with something so serious and life-changing, you're full of questions, and especially not knowing much about the disease. And there are so many questions in your head going on all the time. And what were the sources of information you referred to, and what sort of educational support you received at every phase of your treatment cycle, or even during the diagnosis?
Well, really, 15 years, I think that things have changed now. But 15 years ago, I didn't have, well, I was explained the type of cancer I had, but I mean, that was like explaining the motor of a car, because I didn't understand, I didn't understand most of it. And concerning the treatment, I didn't understand. I went with to the first meeting with the oncologist. I went with my brother, who is a doctor, and he is a general practitioner, but previously he had talked to some colleagues, so he knew what medicaments were in the chemo treatment and what were the side effects. And the long-term side effects, because that's something many people don't know, because they think, well, you are taking chemo treatment and you have these side effects, but no, this is not only this. 10, 15 years later, you can have heart problems, for instance, depending, so another very serious side effects. And it was my brother who discussed with the doctor, with the oncologist, about the treatment and the possible side effects, and thanks to my brother, I had more tests prior to the chemo treatment, check my hair, and so on. And because of my job, I was quite good at looking for information on websites.
Right.
So I look for information in my city, in Navarra, in Pamplona. There is a very good private hospital who is linked to a private university with a very famous medicine faculty here, which is a Clínica Universidad de Navarra, and they have a lot of information in their website about breast cancer. And I found also very good information in Mayo Clinic in the States. Yeah. Yes. So this, and then I found patient organizations in Spain that had some documents in their websites, very interesting. So, but my basic information came from Mayo Clinic, Clínica Universidad de Navarra, and documents from the Spanish Federation of Breast Cancer Associations, where I am the treasurer now. And my regional association, they had some documents from European organizations too. I must say that some of the documents are in English, but that's a pity, because some people don't. Now with Google Translator it's easier, but many people cannot manage it. And some documents are booklets, so. And that's a problem, because there is a lot of good information in English that cannot be given to patients in Spain or in France or in Italy or in Germany because it's not in their own language. So I was very lucky because I spoke English for many years, and I also speak other languages, so I didn't have any problem with documents in English or French. So, but I think that information is basic.
Reflecting on your journey, were there any specific moments where you felt truly heard or supported? And what made those interactions stand out, be it with healthcare practitioners, nurses, or even patient advocacy groups? Did you get any sort of support from any patient advocacy groups?
Not really, not at the time,
Right.
because I felt that I didn't need it. I was very grateful to the nurses. I think that many people, we talk about healthcare professionals
Yes.
in cancer treatments, and we think about oncologists, radiotherapists, pathologists, but we very rarely mention nurses, and they are basic. They are a very good source of information.
Yes.
Usually they are more accessible than healthcare, than doctors, because there is a problem that they lack time. We would need longer time in our visits to receive more information, to be able to ask more questions, or to be more relaxed in the consultation with the oncologist. But nurses in the day hospital where they gave me the chemo treatment, they were so helpful, so sweet, so positive, and at least here in my hospital, you had a telephone number to nurses where you could call till from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening.
Right.
And if not, we were told to go straight to emergency. But you knew that you had, if you had something, if you got up one day with a rash somewhere or with a swollen tongue, you could call the nurse and she would arrange everything. And once you finish the treatments, you lose the connection. So you are a little bit like an orphan.
Yes.
So I think that the role that nurses play should be considered as very important and should continue. In some hospitals, they have a nurse navigator, or they call them in different names. In my hospital in breast cancer, there is no yet. We are from my regional breast cancer association. We are continuously asking the government to put a navigator nurse, a nurse or two nurses. I don't know how many are necessary in case a patient or a survivor, because being a survivor doesn't mean that you are free forever. You have to go every year to your tests for the rest of your life. And you can have, last October, when I had my yearly mammography and echography, they found something in my left breast, and they did a biopsy, and I spent 4 horrible weeks, thinking that cancer was back again.
Oh dear.
And it's 15 years after, because in my type of cancer, there can be a recurrence even 20 years later. So
yes,
you never end with your story. You are with the cancer in your head the whole time. But nurses, I think they are basic. And my friends, my colleagues at work, I remember the day I went back to work. One colleague of mine who lived very close to my home, and she called me, why don't we meet tomorrow and go together to the office? Right. And I thought it was strange. But during the time I had been absent, changed the positions of work. So I had to go to another place, not to my former position. I had to go to another office.
Right.
When I went in, there were balloons, pink balloons, and all my colleagues at work were wearing pink clothes, shawls, T-shirts, shirts, dresses, ties. even men, they were wearing pink ties or pink shirts.
Right.
And I was really crying.
That's a wonderful gesture
Yes,
of
it was
support.
something very simple,
Yes.
but it touched me very much. It touched me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the support from colleagues and friends and relatives
Yeah.
and family is really important. And when you see them being part of your journey and helping you, I think it gives you a lot of strength. So that is a wonderful gesture on their part.
Yes.
Yeah. From your perspective, Conchi, how can the healthcare industry or the pharmaceutical industry better understand and address the real world needs of patients?
Well, in my experience as advocate, I collaborate with different pharma companies in patient advisory boards
Hmm.
to discuss different things. And I'm
Hmm.
in the last 3-4 years, we are working a lot with different companies on patient unmet needs,
Hmm.
creating documents for patients,
Hmm.
information for patients, brochures, leaflets, apps, many things. So I think that they should continue this way. The problem is that sometimes doctors refuse, and it's normal because they come from private companies, commercial companies. They are not very willing to give this information to patients because they have the logo of the pharma company. But
Yes.
there should be some kind of arrangement to purvey or to carry all this information to patients because in my experience we have achieved very good documents, and I think that pharma companies should go on like this. And there is another problem, which is I know that research is very expensive because it takes
Yes.
a long time to get a drug approved, and on their way they are leaving a lot of experiments and research that has not a very good end, and they spend a lot of money. But every time cancer treatments are becoming more and more sophisticated
Hmm.
and more expensive,
Right.
and healthcare systems won't be able in the future to pay all the treatments.
Right.
In Europe, we are happy because we have very good public health systems, and
Hmm.
patients usually, depending on the country, we don't pay anything in Spain, or in some countries you pay a little bit. But in many European countries, in Eastern European countries, they don't have access to
Right.
medicaments we are using in Spain, UK, Germany, France. So they should do something to this. In Spain, once a drug is approved by the European Medical Agency, it takes almost 2 years to be approved in Spain. And the main reason is the discussion of the prices, is pricing. So I think that pharma companies should work more on pricing, to do
Sure.
something to not to have these enormous prices, because in some countries like mine, treatments very late, and meanwhile people die, and in many countries people don't get access.
Hmm.
So equity and access, this is something that we from patient organizations are fighting for, not only for our countries, but
Right.
for the whole Europe and the whole world.
It's very well summarized. In the last few years, the level of care has improved significantly. Are there any interventions that you see available to the patients right now that you had access to when you were going through your journey?
Yes, there has been a lot of advances, a lot of good results in research and in investigation. I think that survivorship and the high percentage of survivorship in breast cancer in particular, but in cancer in general, we cannot forget, for instance, pancreatic cancer.
Hmm.
It was a death penalty 2 years ago, and now there are more and more people. The survivorship percentage is not very high, but it's increasing little by little every day, and this is thanks to research. I think that screening programs and research are basic. I was detected in a screening program.
Right.
If the screening program didn't exist, by the time I would realize that I had breast cancer, it would have been probably be metastatic.
Right. So when you were diagnosed...
And now there is something wonderful, which is immunotherapy. That at the beginning was very positive for some types of lung cancer.
Yes.
But now it's being used also in some types of breast cancer, especially in triple negative, which is a type of breast cancer that was very bad. It was usually detected in women below 50 years old, usually very aggressive. And now and didn't have a target treatment. And now with immunotherapy, they are getting very good results. And more women with triple negative are doing quite well in their treatment. So cancer landscape regarding treatments are changing completely. And not only in new treatments, but also in the escalation. When I was diagnosed, at the beginning, they didn't know whether to treat me with radiotherapy or yes or not. Thanks God, at the end it was no. But if I would have had radiotherapy, the treatment was 35 sessions. That means every day for 7 weeks. Going to the hospital every day for 3 minutes treatment, but for 7 weeks, more than 2 months.
Right.
Now, thanks to the escalation, they are reducing the time of the number of sessions in radiotherapy and increasing the dose of radio because thanks to research, they know that it's safe for patients and they can reduce the number of sessions, increasing the dose. And that's very good for the quality of life of patients. Because thinking about going to the hospital for every day for 2 months after the chemotherapy, it makes treatments so long.
Yes.
And so,
yeah, it can be exhaustive.
Yeah.
So being a patient advocate, are there any specific advocacy projects or initiatives you are passionate about that aim to improve the lives of other patients?
Well, as I mentioned before, patients' education is very important. And I think we must do everything we can to increase the education in patients and to attract patients and provoke them the need of knowing and learning about their disease.
Right.
And on the other side, I'm collaborating with a European project called Optima, which is managed by the European Lung Foundation, and it's to apply artificial intelligence on cancer patients. I think that using data from patients, well, it's already being used in some parts of the cancer journey, but increasing the use of data will help not only researchers and oncologists and healthcare professionals regarding cancer in general, but also can help patients. But the problem is that some patients are reluctant to give their data because of the use. So data protection is something very complicated in Europe. It's needed, of course, but I trust them completely. But I know that many patients are reluctant. I mean that if I'm told, well, you are going to take part in this study, we are going to use your data, and they are going to be anonymized.
Yes.
And I trust them and I believe them. I mean, I'm not the person that thinks, but maybe they are going to use it in a strange way. But many people do. So we must work society and governments and organizations must work on patients. On one side, to teach them how good using patient data and patient outcomes for their own benefit and for future patients. And on the other side, work on organizations and researchers about protecting well the data from patients.
Right.
But I think that this is something artificial intelligence used in the right way can be very helpful, can save a lot of time, a lot of money, and can benefit the quality of life of patients also.
Right. Conchi, for someone currently battling cancer or facing a similar diagnosis, what words of comfort or encouragement would you offer?
Well, cancer is a bad word and it's a bad diagnosis. And if someone has cancer, it's bad luck, but it's your ticket. But once you have been diagnosed with cancer, you must know and realize that cancer treatments have evolved in the last 20 years dramatically.
Yes.
In a positive way. So there is a large proportion of possibilities that you are going to be well after treatments. So I should do all my best to help this patient to be positive about their disease. It's bad luck that is you, but you must be, I think must be is not the right word, but I should help patients to have a positive behavior towards the disease. You are going to have a bad time because treatments are very hard. There is a lot of adverse events. It's going to affect your quality of life. It's going to affect your life. You will have to stop. But you can have positive things from it. Possibly you are going to have a good prognosis and a good result, but being conscious that you are going to have a bad time, but there are the possibility to receive help and support from patients, not only from friends and family and colleagues, but you can have professional support from patient organizations with psychosocial support, not only for you, but also for your family, because in my association, not only patients are treated, they are partners, and sometimes they are children, because cancer in young women with young children is very hard.
It is.
Because for children, they don't like to see their mom without hair. That's something that affects children very much. I know patients that are with a wig the whole time at home till the babies are slept, and they don't have a rest at home without their wigs because of the children.
Yes.
If their mom is in bed, well, they think that mom is ill, but maybe later or tomorrow she will be better. But if they see their mom without hair, that's very impactful on children.
It is.
So being a cancer patient today is a bad thing, but it's a much better position than being a cancer patient 20 years ago. There are more resources from the point of view of medicine to control this cancer and to destroy this cancer. And there are lots of patient organizations, not only in breast cancer, there are other cancer pathologies with patient organizations that are going to support you and give you strength enough to carry on.
And caregivers often play a very important role in the journey.
Yeah.
What do you believe is the most meaningful way they can provide support to a loved one during such a journey?
Well, I think that caregivers have a very hard job to do. And we must take into account also one thing, that care the caregivers, because sometimes the situation is so complicated and they are so fully dedicated to their beloved that they forget about themselves. And sometimes they need help also. But I think that caregivers are basic.
Mm-hmm.
Because even in my case, I live alone, and I wanted to be at home as much as possible. So when I had the chemo sessions, I went to my brother's for 3-4 days, and then I came back home because, well, I like to live alone. But many patients need the support more time or more close, and especially if they are a couple with children, or even though they are young or teenagers. Sometimes teenagers also face cancer disease in their parents very bad, because they are in a period of their lives where they are very belligerent with everything, and sometimes the relationship with their parents is not very good. But they receive the shock that maybe his dad or her mom has a very important disease, and his or her life is at risk, and they react in a very strange way sometimes. The caregiver must also not only care for the deceased person, but also for the rest of members of the family, depending on their age or their situation. But there should be also a way to educate caregivers on how to do best their job. Because a person, we don't know, when we are born, we don't know anything. We learn little by little in life, and we go to school and to the university. And a person doesn't know about cancer treatments, or about adverse events, or how to deal with them, or how to deal with a person suffering from cancer that is in a very negative way because she or he doesn't feel well, and she's negative, and emotionally is a very heavy weight. So they should need there should be support for the caregivers also, because in some cases, for instance, in metastatic patients, sometimes breast cancer patients are diagnosed since the very beginning with metastatic disease. Or sometimes the metastatic setting appears 3, 4, 5 years after the first diagnosis, and they have lived every day for months, for years, with this situation that they know that is not going to be cured. There is no cure for it. They are always waiting for new lines of treatments. And when a line of treatment is over because it doesn't work anymore, they have to look for another line of treatment. And maybe one day the line of treatments are going to finish, and the end of life approaches. Unfortunately, we all are going to die one day or another. But in metastatic disease, they know that they have an expiry date more clear than the rest of the human beings. I was very impacted because in these advisory boards I work or I collaborate, we've been working very much with metastatic patients in breast cancer. And suddenly, in some cases, we have every year a meeting, and you go back the year after, and you know that there are some people missing because they died. And there is now a very close friend of mine who is German, and I met her many years ago, and 6 years ago she was diagnosed metastatic. And last time we met, we had a meeting online some days ago, and she said, well, I cannot get a long-term compromise, because I don't know, because her situation has getting worse, and now she has brain metastasis, and this is quite bad. So she knows that her life may end very soon. It's very difficult. It's very, very hard for them. It's hard for us, and we don't know how to deal with it because you want to help, but you don't know very well how to help.
Exactly.
Because in this case in particular, he's an advocate. I mean, she could get a medicine degree because of all the knowledge she's gotten through all her journey.
Yeah.
And there are many metastatic patients, not only in breast cancer, but in other cancer pathologies. And the situation is very hard. And carers of metastatic patients, it's a real difficult activity.
Right. If you could envision a more patient-centered healthcare or pharmaceutical system, what changes would you prioritize if you were to imagine a world that offers the most patient-centered care? What things would you prioritize?
A patient-centered care is now everywhere. When you go, if you read documents from the Ministry of Health or from pharma companies or for cancer organizations, but it's not so easy to introduce it in the daily practice because personalized care means that you have to take into account the preferences of your patient and their particularities. I think that working more and more on having a real 100% patient-centered care is still a pending matter to do, to achieve, and also education. I think that healthcare systems, insurance companies should do whatever is necessary to allow doctors to have longer time with patients, especially in some sessions, because it's not the same when you go for the first time to the oncologist or the times you go at the beginning of the treatment that once you've been going to the oncologist for several months. You need longer time.
Yes.
So that costs money, of course, but you need longer time. And healthcare systems must collaborate with pharma companies some way to bring all the information to patients. There should be a way, because then a pharma company has a website for because of their products, breast cancer patients. Another company creates a different one because of the product they have. There should be a unification of all the, and leave apart, well, this company has this product that is applied at patients having this type of disease, but there is general information that is for all, in this case, breast cancer patients.
Right.
So there must be a way to work on it, to facilitate information to patients. And education, I think that education is really needed. And there is another one thing that the ministries of universities or whatever they are called in the different countries, when students go to the medicine faculty, they need to have classes on psychology, on how to deal with patients and how to deal with bad news. Because sometimes they've learned how to cure patients. But sometimes some doctors, they give the news in such a bad way.
Yeah.
Because even they don't want to give bad news, but they feel they are obliged to give them.
Yes.
But they need resources to deal with it. And quality of life must be also at the center of this personalized care of patients. Quality of life is very important.
Yeah.
not only present quality of life, because as I've told before, there are many late adverse events, and some adverse events remain forever, and quality of life may change your life completely. You can overcome a disease. You say, well, I've stopped in my life for 2 years, I had the cures, and then I go on. No, you don't go on. You already have it on your back, and you are going to carry it for the rest of your life.
Right, right. Now, looking back, what has been the most rewarding or fulfilling part of sharing your story with others?
Well, I think that in general, I think I am a person very interested in solidarity. Not only in advocacy, in cancer advocacy, but well, I've also collaborated with the Red Cross when I was younger, and when I stopped working, I also collaborated with the food bank. And I think that what you receive emotionally is much more than the effort you do. And for instance, some weeks ago, I was in Barcelona at ISPO in a round table about what means breast cancer beyond, well, it was about HTA from the social point of view, not only economically. And when the time of questions arrived, there was a man, and he said that he had been impressed by my testimony, and he had been carer of his wife, because she had also breast cancer. And since her wife disease and her role as a carer had changed her way of thinking, or he thanked me for the testimony and for being there and telling my story. And I think these small things, I was really touched. So it's not that you receive physical things or rewards, but when you meet a patient and she's very nervous because of the diagnosis or the treatment, she doesn't feel well, and you meet her, and she knows. Well, it was the same with me at when I was with the treatments. You are undergoing the same, you are suffering the same, or you are living the same situation as this person. It helps, and you are there. They realize that you've gone through it, and you are there. So they see that, they realize that there is a life after all.
Right.
And they relax. And you get a feeling of fullness.
Yes.
And yourself, you feel thankful for, I've been able to help this person.
And before we conclude our today's episode, there's one last question I want to ask you. If you could go back to start of your journey and offer yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
Regarding my relationship with my oncologist, I'm very happy with him, and we get on very well. But I think that more information, maybe not right, because there is short time, so on. There should be like a brochure explaining what's going to happen with you.
Right.
I mean, this is neoadjuvant chemotherapy, or yes or not, surgery, chemo, immuno, whatever, all the options, and he just tick them, and then an explanation on what they mean,
right,
the adverse events, and how to deal with them, and links of where you can get more information.
Sure.
I think that the worst thing, at least for me, was that I was at the beginning of something. Well, I knew that surgery, chemotherapy, maybe radiotherapy, endocrine treatment came afterwards, because at the beginning they didn't tell me about the endocrine treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go for the first time to the oncologist, it's like you have so much information. You are bombarded.
Bombarded, yeah.
Maybe you need a second time. Maybe it's not necessary with the oncologist, but with the nurse. So the nurse should be available to increase the information.
Yeah.
I think that from my point of view of today, I needed more information, and I should have been stronger
Right.
to ask for it.
Yeah. Conchi, I want to take a moment to thank you, not just for joining us on Drug Diaries today, but for your incredible courage in sharing your story. It takes immense strength to open up about something so deeply personal, and your willingness to do so is a gift, not just for us as an industry, but to every patient and family navigating similar journeys. Your story of resilience, self-discovery, and unwavering determination is truly, truly inspiring. You've reminded all of us why we do what we do. Your insights and experiences serve as a powerful reminder that behind every data point, every clinical trial, and every breakthrough is a human life, a person whose journey matters deeply. On behalf of myself and the entire Drug Diaries community, and everyone listening, thank you for being a voice for so many of us, giving us the opportunity to learn from you. Your courage and advocacy are making a real difference. And I know your story will stay with us long after today's conversation. We wish you all the best as you continue to inspire others and champion the patient voice. Thank you once again for being here with us. It has been an absolute honor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for putting the patient in the center. That is something that must be forever, the patient in the center. Thank you.
Thank you, Conchi.